welcome everybody back to another edition of the SC Fanguard. My name is Mark, and I marched Santa Clara from 1997 to 2001.
And I'm John. I marched SCV from 1979 through 1981, and this is part two of a very, very special year.
We've got some wonderful guests lined up for you today, ladies and gentlemen, and we are doing our number one most requested show on the Fanguard, and that is 1987 Santa Clara Vanguard. And this is
Woo!
Russian Christmas music, and it is by far and away my most favorite Santa Clara Vanguard show, and I know that many Vanguard alumni feel the same way as I do. And tonight we are so honored to have marching members of the 87 Vanguard as well as the 87 Garfield Cadets, which we've been in part one of our episodes here. If you've seen it, you saw that we watched Garfield's show from 87, and it was amazing. One of Zingale's absolute masterpieces, the Appalachian Spring. And now we are transitioning and going to be watching Russian Christmas music.
Hey everybody, I'm Ty Hardaway. I marched Santa Clara in 1986 and 1987, and I had the good fortune to have put in enough hard work to be named the center snare for 87 and section leader. And I also happen to be the president of the Martha Leeson Garcia fan club.
And my twin brother.
We're twins.
Yes. And
well, that's awesome. Martha.
Yeah, I'm Martha Garcia, maiden name Martha Leeson. I was in Santa Clara from 1984 to 1987. I was primarily the timpanist. I was in the pit, mostly played timpani and some mallets. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
And she married a Blue Devil.
Yeah.
Do.
Hey, I got a question.
It happened.
Where's my application for the Vanguard, for the Martha Leeson Garcia fan? I never got an application.
Let's go down to Bill. Bill, say hello to our audience. So glad to have you, sir.
Hey, everybody. Hi, my name is Bill Thomas. I marched SCV from 1983 to 1987. I was in the Alumni Corps in 97 and 18, and I was on the board of directors from 2013 to 2018. And more importantly, I was Martha Leeson's seat partner in 1985. So I think that makes me some kind of honorary chairman of the Martha Leeson fan club.
All right, let's go to a person I absolutely love and respect, one of my former instructors at the Santa Clara Vanguard. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Marc Whitlock. Thank you, sir, for being here again. This is now the third episode. You got a t-shirt for number 2. What do you get for the third one? I don't know. A mug?
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark. I marched several years of drum corps in the 80s. I marched the Garfield Cadets, aged out in 87. And I have been instructing drum corps ever since then up till today. And I've worked with several corps, but a total of about, I think this is year 13 with the cadets. So, and I was really privileged and honored to teach the Santa Clara Vanguard in 2000 through 2003, where I really learned about the class and the tradition of the organization.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the chance to be here. I'm Stuart Carter, originally from Carmel, Indiana. Now live in a town called Zionsville, Indiana. Was a French horn player with the 27th Lancers in 85, 86. Played mellophone for Garfield 87 and 88. And Martha, I don't know if I'm in the fan club, but I call her she's my best friend I've never met. So we've never actually met in person, but we've become great friends over social media. And I just, I'm thrilled to have a chance to be a part of this Vanguard family.
You know, I'd like for you and Martha to just talk a little bit about how you guys connected, because I find that story interesting, and that's kind of the entire reason why we're here tonight and telling this story. When I heard Martha talk about this relationship that she had with the enemy, I couldn't resist. So
Saw us chatting and you commented.
Yeah, there was a thread going on, and I saw that you had mentioned, yeah, you'd marched 87 Vanguard. This was probably 5 years ago, maybe, and I had never spoken with anyone from the 87 Vanguard.
And I had never spoken to anybody from the Garfield Cadets,
So-
87.
Social media,
And so I
huh?
can't, yeah, I can't
awesome.
remember if I sent you it was either a private message or I just something in a thread. I said, I've never spoken with anyone. I just want to let you know how much I respect and admire what you accomplished in 1987. It was the work of a champion. And so we kind of went back and forth, and we are now gotten to be. I consider her a very close friend. I hope to meet one day.
Mhm. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I don't remember how long it took, but maybe a few months in, we decided it was summertime. We decided to create this secret group.
Right. And if anyone from either of those two corps wants to be included, please contact myself or Martha. But the idea was for us just to kind of get to know each other. We never had a chance to hang out in the lot after the shows back in the 80s. So let's find out who we are now, kind of share some stories and get to know. And what I put on the site is we are all tied together in drum corps history. There's 256 people out there that are linked forever. And why shouldn't we get to know who each other is? And it was great because I love the fact that so many of the people I invited all the people on the Garfield side, and they come on, they go, God, I loved you guys. You were great. I mean, you're Santa Clara Vanguard. What the hell? How can you not love the Santa Clara Vanguard, particularly in the 80s? I mean,
It was just such artistry from both groups. And I think we all owe a debt of thanks to our designers and our instructors and our fellow members from both
Absolutely.
corps
For sure.
for really pushing the activity forward. And it was just a great, two great shows. And I just want to say before we start the video that I remember my live viewing of the Santa Clara Vanguard in 87 was, if I had to pick one word from my own vocabulary to describe my reaction to that show would be the word intense. The members were intense. The show the energy was tangible, like you could hold it in your hand or you could climb it. It was just so strong. And I was just like, holy blank, it was just like one of those, like, what an amazing drum corps and an amazing show.
Remember
The
the name?
opener was Russian Christmas music.
Russian
By
Christmas
Alfred Reed.
music.
Alfred Reed's
Mhm.
Russian Christmas music.
What was it?
It was all Russian composers. Dance of the Tumblers.
Yeah.
I think
Dance of the
Rimsky-Korsakov.
Tumblers, which is also called Dance of the Buffoons. We used to
Yes.
call it Dance of the Buff Dudes.
Right. And then Lullaby and Lezginka from Guyane Ballet by Khachaturian. And Lezginka was a long time, it had been the percussion feature in, I think, the 70s, and it got brought back for
78 and
87.
79.
Yeah.
I marched with Ginka when it came second time, yeah.
Yeah, it was no joke when Ralph said that's what we were playing. But Ralph and I hung out a lot, between rehearsals. And he said, I think we're going to play Lipskink. And I was like, we can't. We're not good enough. We're not Rob
Right.
Carson's 79 line. He's like, we're going to do it because it fits the theme for the show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we
Great
did
choice. Great choice, though.
and then Hadabov Yalga and Great Gate of Kiev from Pictures and Exhibition, which was a holdover from 86.
Right.
The
Mussorgsky.
great pictures
Mhm.
at an exhibition by Mussorgsky. And
also, there
Yeah.
was a story. There was a story to the show that it was King Frost and the Snow Maiden, sort of an
Right.
unrelated love story from Russian folklore. So that's
Yeah.
why we had our assistant drum major Ken Serra playing King Frost, and our guard captain Kathy E, who is now Kathy Pearson, playing the Snow Maiden. And you'll see them coming in and out during the show.
Ty, before the show starts, because there's a famous story about one of the end snare drummers. And this is according to Mr. Phil Vallejo. But the first story goes is that on the way from the warm-up to the performance, he loses his hat, and his hair just happens to look a lot like the hat. So nobody really notices. The second story that I've heard is that someone in the snare line lost their hat, And because he had the hair looking the way he did, he was then chosen to lend his hat to that person who had lost it. Any truth to either one of those?
Close. We had a long break before we went on where we were just standing at attention, ready to go on, and our instruments were on the ground. We think an excited fan stole his hat, and that was Ensnare Joe Gilster.
Wow.
One of the sweetest persons you've ever met. Official 87 seat partner, a man I love to this day. One of the kindest persons, one of the best percussionists who got thrown into a snare line. But we think someone stole his hat, and he was the one person in that line that would not be fazed by not having a piece of his uniform.
Okay.
So the horn line did not nobody liked the burnt muffin hats, but the horn line especially hated them. And you can't see it on the video because it starts too late, but the horn line wore the Aussies onto the field. And behind the castle set, there was this big, 12 foot by 10 foot rack with like 60 something bays. And the horn line came onto the field in the Aussies, and behind the set swapped out the hats.
Wow.
And then we would wear the Aussies for retreat also.
Yeah, we want to hear all about every soloist, want to hear their names. We want to hear all the inside details, guys. So here we go. Is everybody ready? Give me a thumbs up if you're good to press play on Santa. Oh, I love it. I love it. Here we go.
So that's Alex Swanner and Kevin Brooks, and oh, that's me.
Hey, Martha.
Hey, Martha.
Hey, Martha.
Ooh, I love it. The campfire scene.
Yeah.
So
So the
iconic.
The guy named Jim Norden, he marched 87, 88, great guy.
Oh, great guy.
Beautiful.
So at this point in the show, the drums are talking about sports and, just anything other than the show. Because we were performers. We weren't, we wanted just to put on a show. The
I
Red
think
Tunnel.
this opening evolves so well, and the pacing is so good.
Was there ever a sketch when you
Again,
can get the front of the thing off? Or did that work? Nice.
There were malfunctions.
Okay, here's what the goosebumps are for me, you guys, right here.
That's me on the left.
I loved having the rifles right in front of us. like that.
Awesome rifle line.
Yeah.
So did those contrabass players eat nails for breakfast every day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Man, they are just so tough.
Here it comes.
Come on, Martha.
Everybody always asks what I'm smiling about. I was smiling because Gale Royer, whose body was literally defying physics at that very moment, he was so excited. I've never seen him that excited.
In that pause, the snare line used to go woo woo, and Rick South said, "The Santa Clara Vanguard does not say woo woo on the field." Big exposed roll.
Oh, conference. Here we go.
Yeah.
Hey, John.
That's me on the left.
I want to know who
Somewhere
it is.
I'm somewhere in there. I think that was fifth on the end.
That symbolizes
Yeah.
baseline.
You guys are absolute
Yeah,
monsters.
the bass parts in the push here are amazing.
Todd Barton and Derek Phillips on the contrast. There's Ty.
There's Ty.
There's a baseline though.
And you can see from Bill's here. Can't see his hat.
It's those bass drum parts, man. Go Ralph Ardeman.
Yeah.
Kent Cater.
Did you guys ever not get a standing ovation for this?
No. They screamed
Yeah, it
and
was-
swearing. So that's our drum major
Oh,
Tim
Tim.
man.
Grease.
I love the hat here. I love the hat. Watch.
March
Oh,
40.
Mic drop.
I tell you,
Spin the Aussie.
what a crowd.
That part of the alumni corps in 2017, and that was amazing being there again, playing that with him conducting.
That's one image I'll never lose is that wall of people in Camp Randall Stadium. And it seemed like it was packed end to end, top to bottom.
That worked out nicely.
Bravo.
Just beautiful.
Yeah, we had 4 mellows and 8 Frenchies at that point in
Mark
At
Whitlock,
that point in
you put those
history.
tuba notes in there. Just
Mhm.
tasty, man.
Huh?
Actually, I was checking out the tasty snare parts.
Oh yeah.
Look at those feet on the bass drummer.
Yeah.
So,
we spent
At
time on
the
this.
end of this piece going into Lishkinka, listen to the bass line. It's just astounding, the transition.
Good tuba part there.
Bass line coming up.
I'm in.
Yeah. Get it, baby.
That was our entire
This is-
transition.
That's me on xylophone in the back.
And those are the tenors not playing.
They're doing the
So you guys had 6 tenors that year.
yeah.
I don't ever remember seeing more than that.
I have stories why our configuration is like that.
Oh, awesome.
Love this moment.
This is the famous machine gun section.
And we did that in 79.
So if you look at some of the snare spacing, you'll see big gaps throughout the show.
Yeah, we
We're
noticed that.
supposed to be a 10 snare line score. That's why we have 6 tenors. It's supposed to be 10 and 6. We lost many really world-class snare players during the off-season.
Ah,
Mm,
man.
Hey,
that
Awesome.
brings back memories.
Awesome.
The second half of the show is harder to play than the first half.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, as a horn player, it was really hard to shift from all that mayhem in the first half of the show to this part. It was
Exactly.
really difficult.
It would have us go out and run a lap hard and then set up for that section of the show that follows it. So you'd be
Mhm.
charged up.
This is Rich Armstrong's
Armstrong,
fabulous trumpet
yeah.
player. He's a professional trumpet player now.
You guys got a beautiful
and-
tone.
Yeah, he gigs in San Francisco. Great jazz
Yeah.
player.
This was actually supposed to be a soprano baritone duet, but all the baritones were like going further and further backfield. It was just staging wise, it was impossible.
There's
I see
Kathy.
Bob James.
These snare parts
This is
were
Kathy's last
insane.
year. 9 years in the A Corps. This is her age out year.
yeah, Kathy, I told her I'd give her a shout out. She wanted to be here tonight, but she couldn't be with a computer. She was busy or something.
Hey, there's King Frost.
Yeah. Who is
That's Ken and Sarah.
is that Ken?
And Sarah, who also wanted to be here tonight, but the guy is a doctor in Phoenix, and he is on call to not 1 but 2 trauma units tonight.
He's
So
on the front line.
he is-
Wow.
He needs to work on his priorities.
Shout out to Ken.
He's an impressive guy. He is a very impressive
Oh
guy.
yeah. Oh yeah. I
For the
taught him
hut
in
of-
high school.
For the hut of Baba
he-
Yaga, the snare line ends up so far backfield, it was almost impossible to play. There was a point where they thought about rewriting the drill. Nathan?
Yeah.
I love that little trade-off at the end of each mini phrase and drums between the basses, the tenors, and the contretemps front. It's just such great writing.
Yeah.
That was so hard to get ensemble.
I bet it was.
Yeah,
That's the first thing I thought of was front to back.
right.
Look where the battery ends up.
by Myron here.
Yeah, way back there.
Bass drums look like they're in Kenosha.
Yeah.
I love this set.
I bet that was very complex to put together in ensemble.
I think the Great Gate battery parts are some of the greatest battery parts I've ever heard.
So hard to kneel and play at the same time and have a
Yeah.
controlled diminuendo. I mean, you guys are doing some really challenging stuff and making it look easy.
I was going to say, the one thing about this show is it never looks stressed. It looks energetic, but very easy, you know?
I
At
love that
Garfield's home,
transition.
Smooth.
at
a great
Garfield's home
transition.
show, I got wrapped up in one of these white flags,
I remember that.
like a mummy.
I was so mad.
That's why they go around the horn line. It used to be a cross through. For most of the season, it was a cross through, but they got rid of it because I was so unhappy.
I remember that. You were raving on the bus. You were. So there are actually two people in there, but they don't show the second one coming out. The first one is
You can just
Lisa,
hear the crowd.
You can hear it.
Lisa March,
The first one.
88. And the second one is Patty Pearson, who comes out, our guard captain.
That exact same platform was
You
used
hear the crowd
Phantom
coming
Disappear.
out.
Right there.
There's the second.
Okay, here comes Bill.
At Santa Clara sign, I'm just about 10 feet from that.
Ah.
That
God.
was for the horn line. Well, for the whole corps, really. That was the show.
Yeah.
That was the golden show you want to age out to.
Yes, agreed.
Yep. There was a video I think Dale Royer did later on where he's reflecting on his history with the Corps, and he just points to that as the ultimate performance he'd ever seen.
Yeah, he wrote a letter to the Corps and said that that was the greatest performance he had ever seen.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just absolute intense energy, non-stop from beginning to end, and it's just a fabulous show in every way of design and performance, and it's just an amazing show to age out to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And like I said, like Ty has said before, that core was ready to go in from the jump. I mean, we were because we were so vet heavy, we were just on fire the whole season.
It was just a weird day. We were in New Jersey. It was really hot and humid. We were late getting to the Bloomfield show because there was, I always remember this, there was a David Bowie concert at the Meadowlands and we got stuck in heavy traffic. So we were late, we were rushed. It was not a good show. And I felt first time we had a bad show and it was like a week before finals. And I think it that was the point where you guys were really starting to take off. And that was like for the judges to see us having a poor show. It was like, wait a minute, they have a weak spot.
Yep. I had a huge marching error in that show. One of the snare players got left behind in that show. It was just like a spooky night.
Yeah, Bill got caught in the snowflake
Yeah.
and
But didn't you guys win that show?
Oh yeah, of course.
you guys, like, you guys had been like 2 points behind, a point and a half, and then suddenly you were like 3/10 behind, and it was like, uh-oh. It was, the whole world laid out there to see. And
It was no consolation to win.
They sat.
If we're talking about Santa Clara Vanguard of the 1980s, my 87 is my personal favorite of those years, even though, I mean, you look at 85 and it's just amazing,
Yeah.
that was so unique.
Yeah.
And so, but you go all the way back to 1980
Yeah.
and the Corps was 7th place, but they were a tour de force for the entire 80s, because in 1980, again, we all have the gift of hindsight. And that show was so ahead of its time.
Love that show.
1980.
Yeah.
And then 81, it's like, boom, back at the top. And then
Well, you guys,
you go through
if you don't know,
80s,
John Steinwinder marched baritone in Santa Clara in 1980.
Mhm.
We've done a review on it. It's an amazing show. It is the first time that asymmetry is used in drum corps to
Right.
an extensive level.
What gets me when I think of Vanguard in the 80s, people tend to focus on the years that they win.
Yeah.
But there was a run of shows from Santa Clara from 82 through 87 that I cannot think of any other period of time for any other drum corps that was just so consistently good that they were,
And varied.
and varied. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
Covered so much different ground. I think 84, I think, is so elegant.
Yeah.
85 is just majestic.
Maybe the best drum solo in history right there. Love that drum solo in 84.
Yeah.
It's legendary.
Which is where I kind of think, and they didn't win a single one of those years. And I hope every kid, I say kid because we're all in our 50s now, but I hope everyone that marched in any of those shows can look back with pride. And I
Yeah.
say that, forget the placings. That was the work of a champion.
Yeah.
And
Marched all, 4 years during that era, and I'm so proud, and I never won. I don't care.
Yeah.
when you look at, I guess, Bill, you had referred to 1984 having a ton of rookies that year. And you see the culmination of 4 years later, that 87 core. Boy, you can just, I don't know, you can feel that growth over the years. But in 84, to have that many rookies, wasn't there correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a 3-way tie in brass in
Yes.
84?
I think that's
I was
right.
just
Yeah,
gonna
well,
say
that's
that.
right.
So
The only
84,
time in
you still
history.
won brass with a boatload of rookies.
I don't know. There's I feel so connected to Santa Clara, and then I think about Gale Royer, and I never met the man. So every single person that I meet that ever met him, I have to know Ty. I have to know who was Gale Royer to you, and if we could just go around, and you know what, Stuart and Mark, I'd love to hear who Gale Royer was to you guys from your perspectives as well.
Gale
ahead, Stuart.
Royer to me was pretty much an enigma in 1986. I kind of saw him. We kind of knew of each other, but in 1987 we were very close. He's basically Willy Wonka in a lot of ways. He's the magic man. He started confiding in me what he wanted out of a drum line, which is what we became for that year. I don't think Santa Clara's had a drum line like that at any other point in history, but it's what he knew we needed to get over a certain hump. The last thing I really had a chance to say to Gale was when we were lined up to get ready to go onto the field at finals, when Joe got his hat stolen and we were all in a big block getting ready to go on, I broke rank and walked over to a very nervous pacing Gale, and he was surprised I was standing next to him, and I said, "Gale, thanks for letting me be in your bugle band." And he looked at me and he goes, "Thank you for being in my bugle band." And you could just see all that tension just kind of, and he was just like, "Oh yeah, this is what we do." And I went back, snapped to attention, and we went off into the field. But he was an interesting dude. He was a good guy.
That's a great story. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing, man. That's awesome. How about you, Martha?
Well, Gale was sort of like my summertime father, he just had this special affinity for us girls in the pit. Me and, if I'm just speaking of 87, me, Serena, and a girl named Barbara, who we always called Babs.
Babs.
He was just like a dad. Like, if you felt sick, he would take you in his camper, which we all called the Batmobile. You go in the Batmobile and he would
Right.
nurse you, and he was just a really caring man. I could tell you 10,000 stories of times he got angry at us, but he really was like dad. He was like loving and caring, and sometimes he'd chew you out if you pissed him off.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's legendary, and I can tell you that I didn't know him really personally, but as a young instructor in 1988, my first year instructing, I was with the Garfield Cadets, and we were at a critique. It was a big show. It was a Saturday show. I don't remember which one it was, but he was just hanging on the fence by himself, and I just said, you know what, I'm going to go up and talk to him. And and he was all by himself, and I was like, I'm going to ask this guy for some advice. He's a legend. I was pretty young and hungry, and I just said, hey, Gale, my name is Mark, and I'm an instructor. And he goes, who you with? And I said, the Garfield Cadets. He goes, uh-huh. And uh-huh. And I said, well, listen, you've done such wonderful work with the Corps. I was definitely greasing the wheels, you know, and I just said, do you have any advice for a young instructor? And he, without pause, he instantly said, you work really hard and you do what's right for the members, and you will never have regrets. And then he walked off, and I watched him after that get into an argument with another Corps director that was incredibly entertaining for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, the thing, Gale, his Vanguard, the Santa Clara Vanguard was his passion. And, you know, whether you were an instructor or a member or, you know, working on the kitchen staff, if you weren't living up to what he had in his head, you would hear about it. Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll have to do this at the 1984 review, but in 1984, I definitely had my turn in his walnut paneled office, backed up against the wall with his finger in my chest. But even so, he loved the Corps, and you knew it. You knew that he loved the Corps.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
The thing, I never met him, but my perception of him was always seemed a little unusual, because when I think Santa Clara Vanguard, I think elegant, I think graceful, I think majestic, and he seemed like a real salt of the earth kind of guy. For somebody who seems just so kind of salt of the earth, blue collar, to have created this, you know, organization that to this day is setting standards, and has always done so with a great deal of class and grace and elegance. It's a very interesting contrast. He's not what I would have expected when I first got to know what was going on in drum corps. Everything I learned about Gale Royer is not what I would have expected based upon what Santa Clara Vanguard represented.
Yeah.
You know, though, Gale had his moments of elegance as well. I remember back in the 70s, he would be invited by Jerry Wright, the original director of the Blue Devils, and Jerry would invite him up to the Blue Devils banquets. And Gale would show up his T-shirt and his, you know, shorts and his Dixie cup. But then he'd hop in the Batmobile and he'd pop out 10 minutes later in white tux and tails. And so he looked every bit that class and elegance that we're talking about. Gale knew when to show that as well. Mm-hmm. He had both sides.
Well, my wife and I were talking this morning about Send in the Clowns, which is a very interesting choice as a core song. It's a very complicated song in a very complicated musical with a very complicated subject. Yeah. And I can only surmise that everything I've learned about Gale is he was a very complicated person. And that, I think that song speaks more and more to me in understanding him every day. And man, what a legacy. There are so many people who live by, myself included, the values that we learned in that core. Integrity, work as hard as you can, don't worry about the score, just go for it. And to think that it stemmed from one guy, one or two. Yeah, but
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I know that obviously the legacy of the Santa Clara Vanguard lives on today because of Gale. But with Sending the Clowns, I have heard, drum corps rumor time, I have heard that Gale arranged that for the horn line. Is that correct? Did he do the arrangement that they still play today?
Yes.
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 Wow.
That was
So
in the
they're
show.
still connected to him to this day.
There was
originally
some
in
drift.
the show.
It was in the show.
Yeah, there was some drift in the arrangement over the years, and I think Bob Higgins sat down in about 2016 or so and went back to Gale's original charts and fixed everything. So
We don't have to dwell on this for a long time, but I just want to mention Ralph Hardiman's name because we can do an entire episode on this, but he was my mentor for a short period of time, but the lessons I learned from him, I carry with me to this day. You know, we would sit in his apartment and he would show me some of the stuff he's written, and I'd say stuff like, well, why do you have like, you know, a 4/3 with the tenors and the snares? And he'd just go, because I can. That's what I want to hear. You know, I used to.
So Ralph.
I still can't believe I got to play those parts.
You know, that reminds me, I do have a question, Ty. Maybe you can address this. Were the what are they called? Flams? The new heads that you guys used in '87?
At that point, they were just experimental heads that Remo had, and they were just made of Kevlar. And they torqued so high that we destroyed so many snares with them.
Yeah, I have one trivia question for the cadets people, for Mark or Stuart. I've always wondered when that corps decided to shift over to a right foot lead.
Anyway, the point being, they switched to the Jeremiah Symphony, which has a lot of odd meter changes. And to get people out of the habit of left, 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 they went it right, 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 so that you would be kind of ambidextrous with your feet. You know, that's the story that Zingale told me. And plus, think about Garfield in the 80s. That's kind of a Garfieldish thing to do, isn't it? Well, we're going to go on our right foot. You people do what you want.
Yep.
We all assumed that the horns up was for the female soloist,
Barbara.
for Barbara.
Yeah.
You know, because that makes so much sense in our heads. That, you know what I mean? And you're like, no. Barbara could have done it. However, she could have snapped her horn if she wanted to. Like it was just
Barb could do
wanted
anything she wanted
to be. What'd you say? More smoother, just smoother, right?
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah.
More relaxed.
Attention to the shoulders.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense.
But you know, we're talking about feet. There's one thing I want to say to anybody from Vanguard, 87 Vanguard, that may be watching this. Hopefully, you might take a little bit of pride in this. I mentioned when watching the video at one point, the bass drummer's feet were phenomenal. Everybody's feet were phenomenal. The foot technique in that corps, in that 87 Vanguard, was just spot on.
Thing of beauty.
It was in a winter. And it was in a winter camp over 88. Mark Sylvester's, you know, so we're working on our basics. And he says, you guys really need to work hard because you got beat last year. You got beat bad, you know. Wow. So Vanguard absolutely won feet in 87. So,
you know, and while we talk about it, I got to give a shout out to that last alumni corps, the 2017 alumni corps. That was an amazing production. I just couldn't believe how good it was.
You guys, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. It has been my pleasure.
What a pleasure.
100%, and John's pleasure for you guys to join us here and talk about your memories and being so gracious with your time and you know, to have Garfield Cadets, Santa Clara Vanguard coming together for this special two-part series that we got going right now.
That's pretty cool.
I think it's going to be really cool.
This has been really, really special.
Yeah.
Thanks for the invite. Thank you.
Oh,
yes, thank you for
by all
inviting.
means, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
You're
I hope
definitely part of the Fan-gard.
yeah, no doubt.
That's right.
No doubt.
That's right.
That's right. Everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing with these great videos by Mark and John, make sure you like and share and hit that subscribe button.
Everybody, thank you again so much for joining us. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
everybody.
it. And we will see
Thank
you next
you.
time on the SC Fanguard. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.